When people look at me, the first thing they see is what's missing. If I win, having one leg won't be the most important thing about me.
When they see you, they see someone who is unstoppable.
Anthony, I want to start with you because I introduced you as one of the stars of our film. What was it like not only bringing your story to the screen, but actually being a part of it on screen as Jharrel's double?
That was honestly, it's an honor for me. This whole experience has been very surreal for my family and I. And I remember being on set, Jharrel had to talk me off the ledge a couple times just because it was a whole new world for me. But to have that experience, to be part of my story, it's a great honor.
Jharrel, talk to me about that dynamic, because typically it would be the actor needing to be talked off the set because the real person is right there.
It's funny, you know, I went from 7 months in the wrestling room with Anthony, freaking out, looking at him like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And he's just reminding me, you got this, you got this. And then as soon as we got to set, the roles reversed. He's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. I was like, no, you got this, you got this. It was beautiful. This is my boy now. You know, this is a friend of mine in life, and this is beyond just me playing somebody in a film now. So a lot of that fed into the performance.
Jennifer, what about with you, with Dr. Judy Robles? What was it like getting a chance to have those initial conversations with her to help build this character?
When I first read the script, there was a lot about Anthony. It's Anthony's story. But as you got to know Anthony and Judy, you realize that it really was both of their story, because he credits so much of who he is as a human and as a champion to his mom, who he calls his hero. And she was very forthcoming and very generous. I wanted her to trust me. I wanted her to, open up to me. And she did. And it really helped my performance in every way.
William, tell me a little bit about that idea, because this isn't kind of your typical sports movie where the main goal is we're getting the big win, getting the gold medal. It is actually really the story of this family, and as you just said, Jennifer, of Judy and Anthony, transforming at the same time. How do you pace that out as a director?
Well, first of all, that was the thing that drew me to the story. I mean, it was the idea that this was a story about a mother and son who, like Jennifer said, helped raise each other and managed to overcome incredible odds to be champions in life and to do things that seem so extraordinary to me even now that I know them. The great thing about what John Hyman, our screenwriter, did was wrote the script in a way that, the wrestling and the matches he had to win or lose, they all fed into the story in a way that made it sort of seamless. And then it was up to us in the editing room to, to keep that thread. I mean, it's kind of what I've been doing as an editor my entire career, so I felt comfortable with that part of the filmmaking.
Jharrel, let me actually ask you about that idea of, this is obviously a physical challenge. You have to learn how to wrestle and look like Anthony, but you also are kind of centering this emotional arc. What was the key to that for you?
I think in most sports films, your lead character is usually this brutal, tough guy. Anthony's far from that. When you get to know Anthony, you actually forget he's a wrestler. It's the last thing you think about. He has such a charm and such a brightness to him, a positivity to him, and I wanted to make sure that came across, the duality between how tough he is on the mat, but the little teddy bear he is in real life, and just making sure that kind of came across.
Anthony, what was one of those nuances that when you saw the finished film, you were like, I didn't know he saw I do that?
That's it, just the little mannerisms, the way I move my head on the wrestling mat when I smack my head, the looks I would give my mom and my siblings at certain times, and that was very me. I was sitting next to my mom on one side and my wife was on the other side as we're watching the film for the first time, and I walked out of there with bruised ribs because both of them were elbowing me like, that is you right there. And so just very grateful for him for just locking in on those little details about me that I honestly didn't even notice when he was watching.
Jennifer, I know you have had that thumbs up as well from Judy, but I also just already noticed the family bond, the chemistry that the two of you have. How did the two of you build that kind of bond, that chemistry that you would need for this?
I think we both understood after meeting Anthony and Judy that was the story, and that relationship was our biggest responsibility.
Towards the end of the film, in that moment where you're reading the letters, there was a story that she told you that kind of informed something that you ended up saying in the film.
She told me this really what I thought was a very intimate and special story when Anthony was a year old, and how her mother wanted to take Anthony away from her. She was 16 years old, just turning 17, and raise him as her brother instead of her child. She just felt like she wasn't ready to be a mother. And Judy said, I just knew in that moment, if I don't accept him, how will he ever accept himself if his own mother doesn't like embrace him? And so I asked Billy, can I add this story? And I had written out this little mini monologue for scene. I said, you know, you're an editor who's amazing and has won Oscars. You can always cut it out. But please let me do it. Let me say it. And to his credit was like, of course, go ahead, try it. And Jharrel didn't even know that I was going to do it. So he thought like we just had line back and forth, line back and forth. Then all of a sudden I go, let me tell you this story. But it was very moving because it really did bring her to the point of where she tells him, I'm sorry, you're amazing. Don't ever let anything make you feel like you're not.
Jharrel, what is it like when you're in that I guess first take of that scene and you hear this incredible monologue?
I think the best moments in acting is when you don't have any dialogue at all, and it's up to you to listen and receive. We talk about this all the time, but Anthony and I are very similar in a lot of ways. It's very weird. I also grew up with a young mom who raised me by herself for some time. We're both very passionate about our crafts. He's good at what he do. I'm pretty good at what I do. And we care so much for our mothers. And so I always, every time action came, I always knew I was transformed. I felt like Anthony, but there was always a little bit of Jharrel that was proud to be there still because I felt so similar to it. So when that scene came and Jen told that story, a lot of the emotions were pretty raw and honest, and that is like the most fun you could have on set, is that type of work.
William, what's it like to have actors who operate with that level of authenticity?
Well, I mean, it's what I dreamed about ever since I was signed on to maybe direct this film. Everybody fell in love with Anthony and Judy and their family, and we all felt, I think, a special obligation to get it right and to do justice to their story and to be respectful to their story. I think it makes the film feel authentic because of how connected we all are to the family.
What did it require in the gym to kind of get prepared to play any wrestler and then add on playing Anthony in the unique way that you approach things?
Like my entire soul and every ounce of anything I have in me. Before this process, I was not a gym rat, so I had to learn a lot. I did 7 months of training, 5 days a week, 6 days a week actually, and some days twice a day. I did a lot of shoulder heavy workouts, a lot of back heavy workouts that it wasn't about getting like beefed up as much as wide and confident like a wrestler. They're very neck heavy and they're very shoulder forward, and then a whole lot of eating. A whole lot of eating. I was eating 4,200 calories a day because the idea was to bulk up, and then by the time we had to shoot, I had to cut down. And I ended up at like 22% body fat from eating so much. And then by the time I shot, I got down to 13% body fat. Oftentimes I get asked, what did you learn from that role? Did that role change you? Yes, finally, yes. I mean, I've learned a lot from my other roles. I've taken pieces and pieces, but this role changed my life in its entirety. The way I think, the way I move, my sort of work ethic, and it's because of this guy. As I was learning myself in the gym, I was just slowly becoming Anthony Robles.
Jennifer, I want to ask you as well, because there is also a physical transformation that Judy has. What was it about the physical that you wanted to show to represent all the different parts of her?
You know, there's always, when you're playing a real person, there is a real responsibility to kind of get it right, where it's not like you're doing an imitation, but you kind of capture the essence of the person. And I learned that when I did the movie Selena, that was the most important thing. You know, I had like this big board in my trailer that had pictures of Judy in different moods and different moments in her life. I noticed that in her sadder times, her hair was colored. And I asked her about it. And she's like, oh my God, how did you see that? I said, I just noticed you were sad in these pictures. And I said, was that a thing? And she goes, yes. Her voice was a big part of it for me. I always start with body and voice in my characters. I love this one interview of her and Anthony together, this podcast that they did. And every morning on the way in, I would just talking like her, mimicking her voice, kind of really getting that cadence down, and then learning my lines in that while I was in hair and makeup. So I had everything down for the day. And that was a big part of it too.
Anthony, as we close out this conversation, I'm going to come to you. So what is it like to now have your own Rocky story out there to continue to inspire all of these audiences and young kids who will watch your movie and want to be just like you?
Honestly, it's truly a blessing, but I'm just so proud because this story, this film, it's my family's story. You know, I can honestly, I watch this and say that Jharrel captured me. You know, my mom, she's always been my hero in my life, and Jennifer captured that. And I know that people, when they walk away from seeing this film, they're going to relate in some way to it. You know, because we all deal with pain, we all deal with challenges with certain opponents in our life that can break us down. You know, it can make us feel doubt, can make us feel like we're not good enough, we're less than. But what this film is going to share is that you can be unstoppable. That stuff doesn't matter. What other people think doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel about yourself, having that belief and saying, I'm good enough, I can do this.
Well, thank you for bringing your life, your message, your ministry, if you will. Congratulations to you all, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.